Welcome back to Algebra 1. We're going to continue evaluating numerical expressions, just getting some additional practice. What if we had the expression 8 minus 3 plus 3? What would that expression evaluate to? How do we do that? Well, first we have to do what's inside these parentheses first. We always do what's inside the parentheses first. You'll hear me talk about that so many times you'll probably get sick of me. Inside the parentheses, 8 minus 3 is 5. So we'll keep that inside the parentheses, we'll say that that's 5, and then we have the plus 3 on the outside. Now that you've done the math inside the parentheses, you can mentally drop the parentheses, and now you just say 5 plus 3 is 8, and that's the answer. All right, so we'll just do several of these just to give you some practice. What if you have the expression 5 times, and we'll open a parentheses, 11 plus 1? What do you think you do first? I've said it about 25 times. You just do what's inside of these parentheses first. So the 5 on the outside, just you leave them alone. And inside the parentheses, 11 plus 1 is 12. And now that you've done that, you can mentally drop the parentheses. 12, or I should say 5 times 12, is going to be equal to 60. And that's going to be the final answer to evaluate that numerical expression. Now, what if we have 6 plus 12? And we'll take that and we'll divide by 3. What do we do first? Again, we do what's inside of these parentheses. So 6 plus 12 is going to be 18, and then we still have to divide by the 3 that comes along for the ride. So now you can drop the parentheses mentally. 18 divided by 3 is 6, and there you go. What if we have 29 minus 0 times 9 inside these parentheses. So again, we do what's inside the parentheses first. The 29 comes along for the ride, minus 0 times 9 is just going to give you 0. And of course, 29 minus 0, you can kind of drop the parentheses at that point. 29 minus 0 is just going to be 29, and that's the final answer right there. So let's move over here and kind of do a couple on this side over here. What if we have, I'll open parentheses here, what if we have 40 divided by 10 divided by 1 times 4. Now notice I wrapped a couple of these things in the inside the parentheses. Let's go ahead and erase this real quick. I want to fix that. 1 times 4 like this. So over here, we do what's inside the parentheses first. So we have to do this first and we have to do this first. When I say we do what's inside the parentheses first, I just mean that we have to do this first and this first before we do anything with this division here. Everything must be simplified and fully taken care of in here, and then separately fully taken care of in here before we ever address this stuff. That's what I mean when I say do the parentheses first. So inside the first set of parentheses, 40 divided by 10, you all know is 4. This division stays, you leave it alone out there. And then we take care of the second parentheses. 1 times 4, again, is 4. And what happens when you take 4 divided by 4? You just get 1. And that's the final answer there. Because at this point, since you've done the inside of these parentheses, you can mentally drop this parenthesis and mentally drop this parenthesis. You don't really need them anymore since you've already done what was inside of them. 4 divided by 4 gives you the 1. So we'll just do one more final problem. And that's going to be a little bit interesting. It'll be 22 minus 7, wrapped in parentheses. On the bottom of this fraction, we'll have a 5. How do we evaluate something like that? Well, it looks more complicated because you have this fraction here, but you follow the exact same rule that I've always been telling you to follow. You do the parentheses first. So on the top of this fraction, you have to deal with what is inside of these parentheses first. 22 minus 7, if you do that, you're going to get 15. You leave it in the parentheses, and on the fraction bar you have there, you have a 5 on the bottom, you leave that alone. So now you have a fraction, 15 fifths, or another way of saying that is 15 divided by 5, because we can kind of ignore these parentheses now that we've already taken care of. I'm kind of writing them down just to remind you that that's where they came from, but since you've done them, you can kind of mentally remove them. 15 divided by 5 is going to give you 3. So you've gotten a lot of practice with evaluating these numerical expressions. I wanted to give you some practice with some hands-on examples. Now, follow me on to the next lesson. We will talk about algebraic expressions and how we start to deal with evaluating these algebraic expressions in algebra.